Hello everybody, Disciple here with Overwatch Curios. So, a little bit ago I made a video about a pretty much unbeatable strategy in Overwatch that was incredibly strong at the time, and it got some pretty good reception. It seemed like you guys enjoyed that kind of thing, but one of the issues that you guys had overall was that sometimes you can't exactly get your team to pick the composition that you want them to and to execute the strategy as you want. So, what I wanted to figure out is what the most effective strategy is to get your team to swap heroes or to play the composition you want. So I teamed up with my friend Convertible, who you guys have seen before, to try and figure out just what exactly is the best way to communicate with your team to get them to swap and overall to get them to play out the strategy that you have in your mind so that you can try and lead your team to victory. So this is sort of an interview with him to figure out just exactly how to communicate with your team at pretty much every level of play. Now, if you guys like what Convertible has to say, you can check out his stream at twitch.tv/Nobel, or you could even get private one-on-one coaching with him through Gamer Sensei. If you follow the link down below and use the code Convertible, you can get $10 off your first session with him. Anyway, this is what I think to be the most effective strategy to get your team to swap in Overwatch. It's not going to be effective 100% of the time. Sometimes you're going to get people who just absolutely refuse or who don't want to play with you, and that's just kind of the state of Overwatch at the moment. But if there's any chance of getting someone to swap, I think that this is going to give you your best chances. So tell me about your favorite way. I think you take a pretty aggressive approach by like checking people's win rates and things like that. It's like, what do you personally feel is your best way to get people to swap?
I mean, I'm kind of aggressive when it comes to getting people to swap. I wouldn't say that I'm toxic, but I would say that I do call people out more often than other people's call other people out. And what I mean by that is if I have a tracer who's unable to kill their Zen, then I would check win rate, see if it's something I want to bet my SR on. Then if I see that it's like 25%, even if it's like 45%, and they have like a decent amount of games played, I wouldn't really bet my SR on a 45 win rate tracer. I would see if they're doing their job in game, which is where the analytical aspect of it comes in. And I would assign them a task. Hey, tracer, you need to focus at Zen. If I can see that they're unable to mechanically do so, then I don't ask them to swap off the role. I ask them, okay, Tracer, you're unable to do this. Can you help us with the team fights instead? Can you take harder flanks and engage from behind on this character? And if they're still unable to do that, I'll say, hey, you're unable to do this and this. Do you mind swapping? And if you do mind swapping, then what can we do as a team to make you play better? Is there something focusing you? And if they should give a reply. I mean, they really should. And if they don't, then it's a thrower, because at that point they're not actively trying to win the game.
And so how do you feel you find the middle ground between trying to get someone to swap and like pushing them too far so that they want to throw or mute voice chat, which is basically the same thing?
I mean, you obviously don't want to attack them as a player. You don't like say you're trash or something like that. You're too trash to play this character. You obviously don't want to generalize. You don't want to do that. You want to try to keep a calm environment. I think like the best way to do it is to do it extremely logically, because numbers and performance inside the match do matter. So if the tracer's only like killed the Zen twice and he's getting like hard countered by a McCree and like you notice it, and we have trouble helping him with the McCree, at that point you're devoting too many resources for that player to be effective on Tracer. Whereas a different player will not be so demanding of team resources and can play around the McCree. So it's not so much that you are telling him, hey, I can do it better than you. I'm a better player. It's not so much that. It's so much more, hey, I'm used to playing around McCrees. I'm used to playing around that. And if you tell him to ignore the McCree, then that's also a good idea. But even then, if he starts getting like hardcore shut down and he's not willing to swap, then you're gonna have to quote unquote babysit him in the game. But if he is willing to swap, which he should be after that point, you're just using like pure logic and numbers against him. And at that point, fights only last so long. You can't be devoting a full defense matrix on a Tracer for a McCree when a Genji and a Winston are diving your Zenyatta. Like you have to be able to like have D.Va go over and protect your Zenyatta with like Boop or her soon to come missiles and their soon to come upgraded damage.
And so you talked about how your favorite way to swap is, you'll look for in-game examples of like things that can do better. You'll try and enable them by like, say, if you have a Widowmaker that won't swap off, keeps getting killed by Winston or D.Va, you just do a better job to kill the Winston or D.Va, so that Widow can pop off. But if finally, the Genji or Tracer or Widow or Bastion or whatever can't do their jobs, you can try and suggest better heroes for them to play in the situation.
With evidence.
Yeah.
You have to have evidence. You can't just never say soldier swap off, you aren't killing Pharah. Instead say, Zarya, could you switch to D.Va to help deal with the Pharah? She's killing our support, so we can't keep you up and charged. Or never say Zarya swap off, you aren't killing the Winston or the D.Va. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like you see the example, right?
Yeah.
It's to make it a team issue and not a player issue.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like, if something would be good in the situation, and especially if they play something, like you can always say, hey, I see that you play a lot of D.Va with a great win rate. I think that would work really good in this situation because you can help shut down the enemy soldier or the enemy McCree or whatever.
And with this improved matchmaking, should we even mention that? Yeah, this is what a UC Berkeley student said to me. That is a collegiate player who goes to UC Berkeley, and I think he's a psychology major. That's a reply from a college student. Like if he was gonna write an essay, that would be his thesis. Is to use the word because. And he made a great explanation, because when people understand why something has to be done, they're more inclined to do it.
And one thing that you can do here to actually help is employing the foot in the door technique. It's a compliance tactic that essentially gets someone to agree to something by first getting them to agree to something smaller. So if you get them to agree with your assessment of the game or of a specific way they might be able to play or a certain area they might want to go or a hero they can focus, then they're more likely to potentially listen to you swapping to another hero if you were to suggest that to them a little bit later on.
Just kind of start making sure you enable them to the absolute max. And if they're still unwilling to, if they're still not swapping and they're being ineffective, then that game becomes unwinnable. At that point, that game becomes unwinnable, and that person becomes a thrower. It's not that they're having a bad game, because if they're having a bad game, they would swap.
Okay.
They would swap for the benefit of the team, because not only is the team devoting resources to enable him for his unwillingness to swap, and he's still not doing what he's required to progress further in team fights, at that point he becomes a thrower.
And the way that Convertible and I hear divine throwers are essentially anyone who does not do what they could to win the game. If you know that there's something you could do better to win the game and you're actively choosing not to do it, then at that point you're throwing, because you're not trying to win, and that's the simplest way for us to define throwing. So if you have someone that could be swapping off to a different character that they do know how to play and they're absolutely refusing to, even though they know that it would do so much better for their team and improve their chances of winning, and they don't do that, at that point they're throwing the game. And you just have to look at it differently. You have to look at how to salvage the game or how to potentially enable them, as opposed to how to get them to swap, since you'll never get a thrower to really try. And so that's obviously how you get people to swap in Grandmaster. Do you feel like that same approach can work for someone down in Silver or Gold?
I feel like down in Silver and Gold, like, you can try it. It won't be, I can pretty much say it will not be effective at that rank. You have to go into the game with the mindset of, hey, our team comp is probably going to be really bad, but we're going to have to play around it and enable. Enabling is something that is extremely important in Overwatch. Even like no matter what team comp you have, as long as you enable all of your teammates, then you should be decent off. obviously like troll comps and stuff won't work, but if you have a relatively like even remotely decent, like even if you have like a Widow, a Junkrat, a Doomfist, or whatever, as long as Doomfist and Junkrat kill Winston, or as long as Doomfist and Junkrat kill their Reinhardt or their Diva or whatever, then the Widow can do something. Or if like it's playing around your teammates' counters and doing helping them do better down there is what's going to win you games.
So instead of, asking them to swap, like
Yeah.
say if you have a Bastion one trick, then, maybe you pick something that can kill the thing killing him or that can protect him for longer to actually do damage.
Yeah, you'd play around him and not. I feel like down in those elos, people give up and say, "Hey, Bastion's a troll pick. This guy's definitely trying to lose." Like right at the beginning of the games, and I mean, yeah, you could get them to swap, but down in that elo, it's like they're not really going to. They're not really going to. Yeah, you can try using a logical approach, and if they're denying logic, and they still, and you can see that they're actively trying to win the game, and they're not trying to lose, like they're not jumping off the map or whatever, and like messing around, then yeah, the person is trying to win the game. So you should instruct your team to play around him and not to tilt, because as like enabling your a Bastion is extremely viable. Like if you shield him, then he can do whatever he wants. Or if you just have to be able to play around picks. And yeah, if you're getting like spawn trapped or something, then yeah, I mean, Bastion's not the greatest pick. It's just a disparity between gold and silver players. It's just a disparity of mechanical skill. Not so much in terms of game sense. So as long as your Bastion is able to hit shots, that's fine. But if he's mechanically doing bad, then yeah, you're gonna have to ask him to switch. And if he's still unable to, then there's pretty much nothing you can do about that in particular situation.
So what's something that you mentioned that you feel like people, assume it's a troll too early or give up a little bit too easily. What do you feel like people in lower elos do incorrectly when it comes to, figuring out a team comp that they can work with or getting people to swap or any of that?
Just imagine running Hanamura attack. First point, you have a Torb and a Symmetra. Yeah, you have a Torb and a Symmetra. Hanamura attack. So what you would have to do is you'd have to get a Reinhardt. Like you have to know how to play around these characters, and that's how you would climb. Because no matter, I mean, unless you kill like, not even if you kill like half the team, because at that point, by the time you kill half the team, they'll have teleporter on the other team if they're running Symmetra to counter. So you just have to enable your team. Like, hey, we have a Torbjorn. Torbjorn can't set up turret, and he's not swapping. So I'm going to have to play around him. In order to have him set up his turret, I have to go Reinhardt and protect where he's building his turret. Because at that point, not only do you change an ineffective character to becoming somewhat effective, you also provide shielding towards the rest of your team that they can utilize as well.
So at this point, kind of to recap, the most effective way to get your team to swap seems to be to analyze the current state of the game, and first to try and enable them first and foremost. So if you have a Genji that's not doing very well, you can instead figure out how you can make your Genji do better. It might not just be because he's bad, it might be because he's getting shut down or countered by a specific hero, and if you can kill them, or if you can protect that hero, then you might be able to enable them to do well. But at that point, if they're still not doing well, you can try and call out with some real game examples, saying that, if you can't kill the Zenyatta, then maybe this would be more effective, or you can present them with something else that would be effective overall in the game that your team needs, not just something that a specific hero needs to swap off of, because people tend to get a little bit sensitive when you insult their particular hero performance, especially if they really like that one hero. After that, really all you can do is try to enable your team, and especially at lower ranks where people might be a lot less willing to switch, then enabling your team is really what it's all about. If you can't get a Bastion to swap off and there's nothing you can do, then maybe picking a Reinhardt to shield him or picking a Winston to hop on the Genji that keeps diving him might actually be the most effective way to win the game, even if it's not exactly the way that you wanted to play it yourself. Anyway, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, I would love it if you could subscribe to the channel or even drop a like down below, and also make sure to check out Convertible on Twitch and Gamer Sensei, of course. Anyway, I'll see you next time. Peace.